In this lesson, we are going to be learning how to test our user model. And with the information we get, you will be able to test any model of any ODM or ORM you're using. So in preparation, I installed Jest and I set up a test script for Jest. The first thing we are going to do is create a test folder. And in here, I'll have a server folder. And in here, I'll have a models folder. And finally, a user.spec.js. That's going to be where all our tests for the user model exist. The first thing I'll do is import the user model itself. Import user from models user. Then I'll import mongoose because we need to establish a database connection before testing our model, right? Next, I'll create a describe, and this is going to be the user model, and it should hash the user password before saving to database. If you've used mongoose before, you'll know that mongoose has pre-hooks, and these pre-save hooks can be used to hash the user's password before saving to the database. And we can do anything really. For example, in this case, we are also generating an email confirm code for the user and saving to the database. So we want to test this functionality on our model. So the first thing we need to do is establish a database connection. And how do we establish it? We can go ahead and establish it here before our test actually runs. So we are going to make this function async. And we are going to await mongoose.connect, and we'll pass in the database connection URL. In our .env file, we can copy that for the test database and paste it there. Now that we've established a database connection, we are going to try to save the user to the database. So I'll create a user object. This is going to contain a name, test user, an email, test@user.com, and a password, which is going to be password. This could be any random string. Next, we are going to save this user to the database. So constant created user is going to be await user.create, and we'll pass in the user object. Now we've created the user, we need to make sure that the created user's password is hashed. So how do we do this? I'm going to import bcrypt from bcrypt. And this is a library that is used to hash the user's password. Then we are going to expect that bcrypt.compareSync, and look at what the compareSync function takes in. It takes in a string, which is the user's password, and it takes in the hash version of the user's password. Okay, and then it compares this, and if they are a match, it returns true, and then if they are not a match, it returns false. So we are comparing the plain password, which is user.password, with the hashed version of the password, or supposedly hashed version, which is created user.password, and we expect this to be true. So we expect that bcrypt.compareSync of the plain password and the hashed password should return true. So let's go ahead and run this test with yarn test. Our test passes successfully, but there are a couple of problems. First, we have an error from mongoose telling us that we need to use the new URL parser to establish a connection. So let's take care of that first. We'll pass in use new URL parser to true. The second thing we see is a warning from mongoose telling us that our Jest environment is not in the node environment. And what does this mean? Jest can be used to test client-side code and server-side code. At the moment, Jest by default is testing like it's testing client-side code, which means the environment is Jest DOM. But we need to tell Jest to use the node environment. Now, in a project where you have server and client, the easiest way to set the environment is to have a comment at the beginning of your test. So here, we're going to have a Jest environment, and we'll set it to node. And every time Jest runs this file, it's going to know that the environment is node. The next error we have is the fact that our test takes over 6 seconds to run. And this is really bad. And the reason for this is because if we go to our user model, after the pre-save hook is executed, we have a post-save hook which sends the verification email to a user. And if we come to Mailtrap, you realize that a verification email was actually sent to this user, which means that in the middle of our test, it's actually sending emails. And sending emails takes a while, and that's why it took over 6 seconds for the test to run. Next, we also have a just did not exit error, and this is because the connection of the database is still open and the connection for sending the email is also still open. Okay, but our test is passing successfully. We need to take care of all of these issues, and I'm going to teach you exactly how to take care of them. At the moment, I'll run my test again, and once we run the test, we have a successful test. It still takes about 6 seconds to run, and it still does not exit. I'm going to hit pause, make sure you get to this point, and in the next lesson, I'm going to teach you a couple of tricks we can use to make sure this doesn't happen.